This is Duke University.
The most autochthonous community, the most original, the most Iraqi one, so to say, is the Assyrian Church of the East. Its beginnings in Iraq go back to the 2nd century, so long before Islam. And in the Abbasid period, well, it was the members of this church who were the privileged interlocutors with the Islamic authorities in the newly founded capital, Baghdad. After 1258, when Baghdad was destroyed, these Christians, the Assyrians, left central Iraq and settled themselves in the more northern regions, well, what we would call today Kurdistan, where they organized themselves along tribal lines. And this meant, among many other things, that the function of ecclesiastical leader, and that of the tribal leader merged into each other. And this situation, well, developed even more in the later Ottoman times with the millet system. In the period after the First World War, many of these Assyrians had to flee the very difficult situation in eastern Anatolia, so eastern Turkey, and settled themselves in central Iraq, so they came back to Baghdad. And one of the reasons for them to go there was the promises made by the British to give them a kind of an autonomous position in the newly formed Middle East. In 1933, Iraq became an independent country, and there was no place for an autonomous Christian region there. Because it was very difficult for the Assyrian Patriarch to give up this idea of being at the same time a religious leader and a civil or a political leader, he had to leave the country. And as a matter of fact, in 1933, so shortly after the independence, many of the Assyrians were expelled from the country. An event which is still remembered today by many Christians, especially in the north of Iraq, on account of the very bloody way in which this expulsion had been carried out. Today it is called Martyrs' Day, and it is celebrated on the 7th of August. As you know, the Patriarch eventually settled himself in Chicago, but is now considering a possible return to Iraq on account of an invitation extended to him by the authorities of Kurdistan, who even offered him a residence in the neighborhood of the city of Erbil, so the capital of Kurdistan. This Assyrian church has a strong consciousness, not only of being a religious community, but also an ethnic community. They are very proud of their spoken language, Surat, which is a form of Neo-Aramaic, and their liturgy is almost always celebrated in the classical Syriac language, a little bit also in Surat, but almost never in Arabic. And they consider their Assyrian identity, that's very interesting, as a sort of continuation, the Christian continuation of the pre-Christian Assyrian civilization, which is, for example, mentioned in the Old Testament. And you can imagine that on account of these strong ethnic feelings, many of the members of this church fell victim to the Arabization policy of Saddam Hussein.
Produced by Duke University, online at duke.edu.